Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. I'm Jonathan Friedman, and our next guest, Rabbi Charlie Schwartz of Lehrhaus. Welcome to Radio Entrepreneurs.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jonathan.
I have to say, at Radio Entrepreneurs, we pride ourselves on finding the unique, and I think this is the first time that we've ever spoken with a rabbi who has a business venture in the hospitality industry. So tell us a little about Lehrhaus and what it is that you guys are doing.
Well, I think if you scratch the surface, most rabbis have a business venture in the hospitality industry. It's just how that manifests in the world.
Good point. Or at least trying to be hospitable.
Yeah, I think we're more successful. We're very successful, I would say, as a profession. So I'm working on this project to open the world's first Jewish tavern and house of learning. It doesn't exist in the world yet. I have a great business partner in this, my friend Josh Porter, who's one of the founders of such things as Alice Obscura and Sparia. And we are building a space for people to come and enjoy the best of the Jewish world, both in terms of food and drink, and we're the people to book. So also that learning side of things. We want this to be a place for everyone that highlights those thoughts, ideas, flavors, tastes, everything that that Judaism has to offer.
Fabulous. So it's being positioned, or it is a tavern of sorts. When I think tavern, what comes to mind is, food, drink, comfort food generally. You mentioned the Jewish angle. Is it, I'm coming for, I don't know, balinces and simmis, or I'm coming to have tavern food in a Jewish environment? Tell us a little about the menu concept and how it ties into the overall concept.
Yeah, so we're pulling dishes and flavors from around the Jewish world, each of which has kind of like an interesting story to it, which you can engage in, or you can just have some delicious food. So for example, we'll be serving fish and chips with amba vinegar and Old Bay French fries. So fish and chips comes from Sephardic Jews that kind of, as they were expelled from Spain, migrated to England, and it was a traditional Friday night dish. So it's that fried fish. Amba is this pickled mango chutney that comes from Iraqi Jewry from their travels to India. And then I'm reclaiming Old Bay as Jewish. Old Bay was invented in 1939 by a refugee from Frankfurt in Maryland, in Baltimore, as he was trying to rebuild his spice business in America. So it's this great kind of story of refugees finding home and ultimately success in America. So each dish will have like a story kind of like that, or drawn from a different tradition. We're serving a delicious Ethiopian stew that's traditionally eaten on Saturdays by the Ethiopian Jewish community. We will have some good Ashkenazi flavors as well. We're taking like a Luxchenkugel, like a noodle kugel, and pushing it as far towards mac and cheese as we can. So things like that. And we're actually doing
so really fascinating interpretation. I mean, let's call it the New Age interpretation of Jewish cuisine, right? But and really an opportunity to make it worldly and sophisticated in some ways.
Yeah. I mean, I would say old new world, right? So because it's all harkening back to older traditions, but reimagining them for this environment, and like expanding oftentimes what people's conception of the Jewish world is. And we're actually doing something similar for the bar menu. So we're working with Naomi Levy, who's really one of the best bartenders in Boston right now, doing something similar, taking those flavors from around the Jewish world and seeing them through a cocktail lens. So, for example, we'll be doing a Hawaii espresso martini. Hawaii being that warming spice really used a lot in the Yemenite Jewish community, and a spicy schlug margarita cocktail. Schlug being that really, really picante, nice hot sauce that's also like kind of Iraqi Jewish flavor. So things like that, kind of pulling from all elements of the Jewish narrative and story and tradition to make something that's really delicious.
Wow. Sounds really intriguing, really fascinating. So tell us about the other side of the concept, which is learning. And how is that going to work? How is that going to apply? We want people to come in and obviously feel comfortable, have an opportunity to engage, or perhaps not, and just enjoy the food and drink. Is that sort of how the concept is playing out?
Yeah. I mean, I would say like just entering the space you're learning, right? Because like you're encountering these stories and narratives and things and people that you might not otherwise have known about or seen. So I'd say like first straight off the bat, come order food, like enjoy the food, and like you'll be kind of imbibing that learning environment. We're also, you can kind of see here, we built out a small classroom space in the back that can be used both for private meals, but also for small 15 to 20 person classes. And so we're right now developing a schedule of classes with our content partners, Hadar, the Shalom Hartman Institute, and Hebrew College here in Boston, to think about like, okay, so what are those like engaging types of experiences that people might want in a more formal way. So the learning's happening all over the place, but you don't have to learn to come here. You don't have to engage in that kind of that formal study. One of the firms we use. Sorry, go ahead.
So no, I was going to ask. So there will be formal, structured learning opportunities or engagement opportunities, and then you can also drop by and have a bite.
Yeah, you can think about
not,
it like
we like to say,
like a yoga bar with like a yoga studio with a juice bar. You might come for just the juice, but you might come for the yoga. The analogy that we like to use is like I go to Irish pubs. I'm not Irish. I still enjoy them. You can come to a Jewish tavern, and you don't have to be Jewish. You can still enjoy the whole environment that we're creating.
So I want to talk about that for a moment, because you talk about it being a Jewish tavern, but it's really a welcoming place for all peoples, right? And I want to sort of talk about the learning aspect. So breaking down any perceived barriers. People don't have to feel intimidated, like they're going to come in and you're going to have to have a deep discussion about Talmud. You might know nothing about it and maybe an inquisitive person, or just want to soak in the ambiance, or any of the above. So all are welcome, presumably. What do you envision as that target audience, or that primary audience that you see at least initially coming?
Yeah, so I would say the people in the media community. So we're in Somerville. We're the first building in Somerville if you're coming from Harvard Square towards Union Square. And so if you just draw kind of like a 2-mile radius around the building that where we are, I would say like that's our primary audience. It's being like a place that's really rooted in this neighborhood and this environment.
Now, are there other types of in the general Cambridge area? I would suspect that there's places that have bits and pieces of what you're trying to accomplish. create community, bring people in, make it an engaging, comfortable place to be. But the differentiator, if you will, that you guys have is you're levering off of thousands of years of heritage and a truly global repository of tastes and foods and incorporating that, which is really fascinating. But then also bringing something else. You don't have trivia on Monday nights. You have perhaps something really geared towards furthering people's minds and engaging, etc. So is that sort of...
Yeah, and what I would say is like, this original concept came really deep pandemic when my partner and I, Josh, we're thinking about like, what are people going to need after whatever comes next after everything's closed down. And so thinking about like the primacy of meeting in person and a physical space, and like those questions of like those deeper questions about like what does it mean to be connected to stories and narrative and people and ideas and meaning and purpose. So it's like, I would say like exactly what you're saying. The way like this space might be different than a coffee shop. Like we're rooting this in both like a physical space in Somerville, but then also like a historical space in terms of like this is a Jewish tavern and a house of learning, really pulling on those things. And that's like it's definitely like a response to the experience of the pandemic and isolation, and thinking about, okay, so what are those deeper things that we might want to be connected to.
I suspect a very meteoric rise in terms of success, and then you can replicate it all over the world, because there's populations in every city. So it'd be a wonderful path towards success as an entrepreneur. Tell us about the time frame. I know best laid plans, but always it sounds like you're in a construction site as we speak. So tell us about a time frame for opening.
Time frame to open it was 2 months ago.
It's all things in today's world and pandemic, and finding the plumber and hoping that they show up and getting the water running and all those types of great things that need to happen.
Yeah. So the time frame
is there a soft launch date? Is there a soft launch time frame? Or
we're really hoping for end of February. You can hear it. It's happening as we go. End of February, early March is really what we're hoping for, and I think we can hit that. But the best way, if people want to stay up to date, is to get onto our mailing list. So if you go to lehr.house, lehr.haus, lehr.house, you can sign up for our mailing list there, and we're sending out updates, and you'll for sure know when we're open.
I should have asked you that up front, Charlie, but tell us a little about Lehrhaus, because there's something to the name and there's, again, tied to some history.
Yeah, so we're not the first Lehrhaus. There was a Lehrhaus in the 1920s in Frankfurt, Germany, founded by Franz Rosenzweig, one of the really great Jewish philosophers of the time, and his good friend Martin Buber. And it was really about making Jewish learning and Jewish texts more accessible. It was not a tavern. They did not serve alcohol. It was more like a pop-up salon in people's homes. But it really kind of catalyzed a resurgence of Jewish learning, a renaissance of Jewish learning in Frankfurt. And so this is like kind of like a throwback to that Lehrhaus and a nod to Franz Rosenzweig and his work. So that's why we pulled the name.
Really fascinating stuff, and I love the way you guys have all pulled together this, history and heritage and all under one roof. I don't think we said specifically the location, so why don't you give us the address? And I know we want people to go to the website and sign up and get on your mailing list, so when the doors are thrown open. But where physically is it located?
We're at 425 Washington Street in Somerville. It's right next to Dali, if you've been there before, who are
sure,
fantastic neighbors. So it's great. It's great being in sharing space with them and all their experience. So 425 Washington Street, next to Deli and Salvador's Market and Broad Street Coffee and the Wine and Cheese Cask. A really, really great little corner in Somerville.
And I have to ask this question just because of the Jewish heritage. Is it a 7-day-a-week operation? Is it going to be open or hours to be determined?
We'll be serving kosher pescatarian food, and we'll be certified kosher under KVH, which is the local Boston kosher organization. And so we'll be open Sundays through Thursdays, and initially closed Fridays and Saturdays. We might get to a point where we're open Saturday nights, but for right now we'll be closed Fridays and Saturdays.
Well, I wish you tremendous success with the launch. I look forward to experiencing the space, and I suspect at some point you will have people standing online Saturday night waiting to get in, as you open up. So, Rabbi Charlie Schwartz with Lehrhaus, it's been a pleasure having you on and learning about it. And as I said, I hope you have great success, and we'll look forward to checking in.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Jonathan. Really a pleasure.
Great. We'll be right back with another segment on Radio Entrepreneurs.